if you want to take a look at that link and maybe go ahead and answer the first question. Basically, Jamboard works by letting you post little Post-it notes electronically together on a board. So go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so I see some folks don't have mic and camera, so we'll just do the best that we can. Obviously, we have the chat, so that's always there to be used. And we'll make sure that, here's the Jamboard link again. We'll make sure that we have a couple folks kind of checking the chat as we go to look for questions and comments. So we've got a team today, which is nice. Usually I'm like on my own trying to do everything. So I'm really, really excited to have like friends to help today. Okay. Oh, Plainfield. I grew up in Plainfield. That was my public library as a kid.
So we're just bringing more folks in. We do have a pretty large audience today, which is great. So for those who are just joining us, as I mentioned to some of our previous attendees, we want to encourage you today to briefly introduce yourselves in the chat. The chat feature is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you click the chat icon or the chat icon on your mobile device. And just let us know who you are, where you're from. And again, specifically if you're from out of New Jersey, definitely let us know that as well.
Ooh, and I'm seeing some folks answering our question. Our question on the Jamboard is, what's one program you are excited to offer this summer? And I'm seeing Brainy, is that Brainy Bunch, an interactive program about teaching with the brain, epidemiology. You would think I would be able to say that. I'm a biochemist, like I should be able to use the big words. That's a really on point class. Potion class and kitchen science, loving it. Family challenges like making fairy gardens and castles from things around the house. That's a great idea. Get the kids outside. I'm seeing more folks from Princeton. We've got more from Metuchen. Wow, from all over. Oh, in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
welcome.
All right. We have to see if Oklahoma is the furthest away from Jersey or not. We're gonna do a little contest here, see who's the furthest from us. That's awesome.
If you haven't yet, I just posted again the link to our Jamboard. We'll be using it to do some brainstorming today. So go ahead and add your ideas. We're asking what one program you're really excited to do this summer. I see a weekly craft and tell where teens can come and share whatever sort of craft thing they're doing. That's a great idea. And maybe some guest speakers. Harry Potter week. Oh yeah, you got to do Harry Potter. I mean.
So it looks like we have somebody in the chat, Sandy, who mentioned that it says the Jamboard is full. It says too many people viewing.
Okay, that's a new one.
Yeah.
Sorry, that has never happened to me before. Let me check.
That is interesting. We have broken Jamboard. That's awesome.
Go us. Let me see if I can. You know, I've never had that happen. So this is a new one, and I'm wondering if it's just not going to let us. If it maxes out. I've never seen anything say that it does max out how many people are allowed to participate. I don't see that as a setting. So I guess kind of just leave your idea and close it out for now so other people can jump in there, and I will share that Jamboard from my end so you guys can see it in just a moment.
And I was going to mention, definitely feel free if you're not able to get in Jamboard at the moment, if you want to share it in the chat, we can always move it over.
I see others are using Beanstack this year. So yeah, our library is using that too. We're all learning how to kind of acclimate to that online environment. You know, I don't know how many others are using that for the first time this year. Should be exciting. I see, what am I seeing? Mythbusters camp. That's near and dear to my heart. I've done many Mythbusters programs. And I actually got to high five Adam Savage once at a maker fair. It's like the most exciting thing that ever happened.
That is awesome.
Okay. Ooh, emoji fairy quiz. That's creative.
So Sandy, while we have our participants putting their ideas into the chat or on the Jamboard, and please continue to do so, I'm just going to sort of jump into our introduction for today, make sure that we have enough time to get to our content and our sort of conversations and Q&A. So I do want to, again, welcome you this morning to today's webinar, Engaging Patrons with STEM, STEAM, and Maker Programs. My name is Doug Baldwin. I'm the president of New Jersey Makers Day. I am also the head of technology at the Piscataway Public Library. Before we get started, just a few very brief housekeeping items before I turn the session over to Sandy, our lead presenter for today. First, I would like to thank our co-sponsors for today's session, the New Jersey Library Association Young Adult Section, the New Jersey Library Association Children's Services Section, the New Jersey Library Association Leadership and Education Committee, and the Piscataway Public Library. So at this juncture, we did have everybody come in with their microphones muted to begin today's webinar. We have a fairly large audience. As attendees, you can toggle the microphone on and off using the microphone icon located on the bottom of your Zoom screen. However, I do encourage you, at least for now, to keep the microphones off while we do the presentation. And when Sandy sort of engages in any kind of conversation with us, she can let us know when it's time that we can sort of turn our microphones on or off. We do please ask that when you're not speaking, please keep your microphone muted and off for the sake of sort of managing our conversations. We do highly encourage you to take advantage of the chat feature to ask questions, engage in idea sharing with your fellow attendees, and to share links and information or resources that you think might benefit others during the presentation. And as I mentioned before, the chat is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or you should have a chat icon on your mobile device. You can toggle that on and off as well to get the chat window. There will be a Q&A session at the end where you will have the opportunity to ask questions and further engage with our panelists and each other. And we will also be attempting, as we're doing some bit here on Jamboard, to have a conversation and brainstorm for ideas and sessions as well. Let's see. Finally, if for any reason you have any technical audio or video issues during this presentation here in Zoom, we are also simultaneously live streaming this on YouTube. So I'm going to provide a link in the chat and copy that in here. I've usually not had too many issues with people being able to, hear the audio or watch the video, things like that during this, but I do want to provide this option here just in case. If you have any issues, feel free to just click on that link. I did check it. It is running and recording everything right now. So that is the final thing I wanted to mention. This presentation is being recorded. You will all be provided with a recording of the session after the session is completed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sandy Roberts of Kaleidoscope Enrichment and the Warren County Library.
Okay, well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out this morning. I know Friday morning, probably time that you'd rather, be doing anything than staring at a screen. I think we're all probably done with screens right now, but we shall persevere, right? So I did my best to make this as interactive as we can today. I know that sometimes just sitting and listening to one person talk can be, it just starts to drone on a little bit. I was always that kid in class that could listen for like maybe 10 minutes and then I was staring out the window. So do anticipate that we'll have some questions for you to answer in chat or on Jamboard or, polls that you can take. Just to kind of get some feedback from you as we go through and keep you as engaged as we can. Normally, if I were doing this kind of workshop, I'd have hands-on activities for you to do. Not really possible right now, but we're going to talk about some ways that you can certainly do that with your patrons online. So I'm going to jump into my presentation. Let's see if sharing the screen works properly today. It's always an exciting thing. Okay, here we go. Start my presentation and share the screen. Moment of truth. Come on, you can do it. And there we go. Okay, one second. I am actually having a little bit of an issue with Zoom being weird. Let me just drag this over here so I can look at you and also share the screen. Let's see. Okay, is that working? Doug, can you see? Yes? Okay, awesome. And of course it has now moved forward. Okay, so engaging patrons with STEM, STEAM, and Maker programs. Thanks again to NJLA Children's Services, NJLA Young Adults Section, NJLA Leadership, the Education Committee, and the Piscataway Public Library for putting this all together. So who am I? Okay. I am your speaker for today. My name is Sandy Roberts. I am the Makerspace Coordinator for the Warren County Library System. We have a public makerspace available to all of our patrons and actually anyone that comes into the building. We're entering, I guess, our second year this August. And it's been a real process building that. So it's been pretty exciting. As Doug mentioned, I also have a business, Kaleidoscope Enrichment, and some of you may have interacted with me before as Kaleidoscope Sci on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. I try to get out there and talk to folks as often as I can. And I am the author of the big book of Maker Camp projects. So if you are ever looking for ideas, I am always happy to talk summer programming. Oh, and I added this bullet point, so I would remind myself, I am helping out with Family Maker Camp this summer, and I encourage all of you to use the content that they're putting out for your programming because, you know, they have Mario the Magician, they have tons of different DIY projects, robotics, coding, and it's all available for free. So that can be really useful too. So go check that out if you haven't checked out Make Magazine or Maker Camp yet. This might be the year to put those to good use. All right, let me start with my guests. Doug, if you want to unmute yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself, I would love for that. Doug is a force to be reckoned with.
Sure. Just one point of note, Sandy. Should we be seeing your Jamboard right now, or should we be seeing your slides?
Should be seeing my slides. No?
Okay. So yeah, we're looking at your. I think I can speak for most. We're seeing your Jamboard tab right now.
Okay, let me stop the share and reshare. Give me 1 second, my friends. It's always got to be interesting. Better?
Yes, we can see the slides now.
Excellent. Okay.
Great. So let me just
see. This is why you need an IT guy.
So thank you for the introduction, Sandy. Again, my name is Doug Baldwin. I'm the head of technology at the Piscataway Public Library. I'm also the president of New Jersey Makers Day, which is a nonprofit here in New Jersey that helps to organize a statewide event with libraries and other organizations to do maker and STEM programming for local communities. Unfortunately, our event was canceled this year due to COVID, but we hope to come back stronger than ever next year. I've been working with Sandy for years now. She's come out to my library to do programs. We've worked and coordinated on various different presentations. I'm very interested in this particular topic, which is why I wanted to talk to Sandy and sort of bring it to everybody's attention as far as how do we translate quality programming onto virtual platforms when a lot of that programming requires a lot of sort of in-person, physical, hands-on making and sort of creating. I just think that's a really big but interesting challenge. And I'm glad just to have you all here to sort of be part of that conversation.
All right. Thank you so much, Doug. Erin. Erin actually shares the desk right next to me at Warren County Library. So why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Erin. I work at the Warren County Library. I'm a senior library assistant, and I typically do everything at the library as far as programming. I'm one of the 3 people who arrange all the programming for our branch. I also do a story time, a weekly story time that is now moved online. And I also do some STEAM programs. I do a Mad Scientist Club every month. And I also am going to this coming Wednesday, I'm going to be offering a STEAM story time every other Wednesday online. I do have a science background. I have an environmental science degree. I've taught outdoor education. So science is near and dear to me, and it's something I enjoy. So, and I like to bring it to the kids. It's, we both get a lot out of that, so.
All right, thank you, Erin. And let's see, I'm gonna just give a quick admit here. And Christina, who I have been really enjoying getting to know more finally. Like I think doing programs virtually, we've gotten to know each other better than we do when we're at totally different branches. So it's kind of exciting that way. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Christina Williams. I'm a senior library assistant at the Warren County Library. I mainly do kids programs, but I also do a lot of tween teen programs. A lot of my programs, I focus on fandoms. Like I have a very strong Pokemon club. I started an anime club since we've been physically closed to the public. I did graduate with my MLS last May, and I'm also a certified media specialist.
She is our go-to girl when it comes to, well, go-to woman, I'm sorry, when it comes to all things, gaming and fandoms. So both Erin and Christina have offered some really engaging programs in this context. So I wanted them to be here to answer questions and to provide some support as well. So that's kind of our team today. I did launch a poll. I just want to get a sense of what kind of programming you are offering or may be offering in the future. And I encourage you, if you haven't already, to take a second and introduce yourself in the chat. We'll be saving that chat and sending it out to everybody. So if you want to provide your contact information, that's a good place to do it. All right, let's dig in, right? Of course, now it's not gonna. Okay, so our goals for today. We're gonna look at some effective ways to engage your public, build your audience, draw in patrons, if not to your physical library, then how to draw them into your online programming. And the goal is really to create creative, innovative projects that will help them learn, have fun, and hopefully get lots of hands-on skill building out of it. So we're going to talk about some of the different types of programs that you can offer. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session to brainstorm, generate some ideas, and just help one another with, with all these crazy transitions we're experiencing right now. You may have noticed, actually, and I should mention this, up here in the corner, that I have some little icons. So I have like a little chat icon, a little poll icon, I have a little Jamboard icon. When you see those, that means I'm looking for interaction from you. And I know that Christina, Erin, and Doug are all kind of monitoring the chat and grabbing any great questions so that we can use them as we go through. So we really do want your input. This has been the hardest thing for me, working in a vacuum and talking to a camera. And I suspect a lot of you are feeling the same way. Okay, so the fundamental question, as an educator, how do we engage our patrons? That's our essential question today. And we're going to talk about a lot of different ways that we can do that. First thing I always go to when I'm planning programming and when I'm thinking about my makerspace in general is that we are all makers. And this is so important to keep in your head. Every kid can be good at science. Every kid can be good at engineering. Every kid can be good at crafting. And what that looks like for them is going to be different for each person that's coming into your makerspace, but every single one of them has something to share. So from the ground up, you want to think about things like social emotional learning, really focusing on giving them personal responsibility and decision making, building relationships both with your patrons as well as your patrons building relationships with one another. You want to think community engagement, because no library, of course, operates in a bubble. We're all about serving our community. And so anytime that you can use that as a touchstone for your programming to make it deeper and richer and more connected, that's going to make a big difference in just people wanting to be part of it. And then providing time for reflection. This is the one I struggle with the most, I think, because it feels like there's never enough time during a program, but giving your patrons an opportunity to kind of look back on what they just did and really appreciate what they did will keep them coming back. Because then it's every time they see that coming up on the schedule, they're like, oh, I remember that I had this moment of, excitement when I was in the program last time. I want to do it again. So don't just focus on the content, really think about the soft skills that your patrons are going to take away from being part of your program. So I want to encourage that. Another thing that I have a tough time with, because my makerspace is actually fairly small, it's a little on the cramped side. There are a lot of different barriers that people with physical learning and mental disabilities face in their everyday lives. And we shouldn't be creating a situation where it's making that worse. We want to be able to release their creativity, release their innovation. So before you start a program, really take a second, look around and say, is this a space that's going to be inviting to anyone? If you haven't encountered, say kids with autism or, patrons that may have difficulties with reading, reach out to people, educators in your community, parents in your community, and just get some advice, get some input as to how you can make programming more welcoming. I share a personal story. Quite unexpectedly, I had a coding class months ago now, and several young men signed up that happened to be on the spectrum. And no, they didn't know that they were all going to be there that night. And it ended up being this like just amazing experience where they got to meet other people that their brains kind of work the same way. They had a really positive experience creating in the makerspace, and some of our more mainstream kids were able to learn from them and interact in ways that maybe, they may not have the opportunity, at school or in their daily lives. And everybody really grew from that, and everybody really benefited, and boy, did they make amazing stuff that day. So really start, again, ground up thinking, how can I make sure this programming will be something anyone in my community can enjoy? And that brings me to my next point. Right now, I think all of us are very aware of the divisions that we have in our communities and in our country. And so planning for diversity and planning for inclusion, we want to make sure that when you walk into a makerspace, some people can feel intimidated right from the beginning because there's a lot of stuff, science and engineering and crafting and all these things. Technology can feel really hard to do because they can feel very challenging. If you make a space that's inclusive, that is welcoming, you're reducing that stress for everybody. But you really want to pay attention to women and girls. Sometimes they can feel like walking into a coding class, it's not for them. So, sometimes you have to address that. Offer a girls who code class to get some folks maybe more used to coding and build that confidence level. People of color, obviously this is a huge thing right now. And I know I'm learning. I'm trying to be really open with my patrons, and I'm asking them to educate me on what they need, what they want, and how I can work that into my programming. And having those discussions is really important, because it's not enough to just say, oh, it's Black History Month, I'm going to throw like a African-American scientist program onto the schedule and we're good. We need to be having deeper conversations, and that will make our maker spaces stronger, make our programming stronger. I'm in a rural area. LGBTQ folks can have trouble finding allies. And so again, taking that simple "we are all makers" strategy and applying it, giving them a place where, we're not necessarily saying, oh, this is, maker time for gay kids, but just letting them know that they're welcome, that they're included, that they can be themselves and feel okay with whoever they are, can go a really long way to building confidence. And as you may or may not know, reducing suicide rates in that very vulnerable teen population. So again, being welcoming, letting them know that their contributions are the same as everyone else's, and that you want to hear them. And then, I'm sorry, I gotta move some stuff here. I can't see. Come on. Oh, and I'm getting like little pop-ups. What is going on? I'm sorry, I'm having a technical issue again, because that's what we do. All right, financial resources. Yes, thank you. That's why I have that bullet point. We have this conversation a lot in our area. We have a lot of people that are, on a spectrum of what they're able to afford, what they have at home. They may or may not have a computer. They may or may not have Wi-Fi. I think coronavirus has really made it clear that we have patrons, and as educators have found students that have wildly different situations at home. This is going to be really important as we move into doing more virtual programming, because we can't assume every kid has Wi-Fi. We can't assume every kid can go to the craft store to get supplies. So whenever possible, if you can look at ways that you can limit the financial impact your activity or your program is going to have on others, you're definitely going to want to try to do that. We want to be as open to everyone in our community as possible, and that shouldn't come down to how much money you can spend on a program. All right, I'm going to take a quick look to see our poll. So it looks like, yeah, 79% of us are already offering STEM, STEAM, and maker programs at their location. So that is really great to hear. And I see that some people are like soon and maybe haven't quite decided yet. That's okay. I'm really excited to see that. I'm glad to know that there's a lot already happening. Okay. So one thing, again, coming from an education background that we're taught often is to remember that kids are walking in, or patrons, you know, anyone is walking into your space with kind of their own baggage, kind of their own lives in their heads going on. And so we break that down into kind of 3 areas to just be conscious of. So one is emotional engagement. How is a student feeling about learning? And that can change day to day. You may have someone walking into a coding class and really feeling like this is scary. You may have someone walking into a crafting class and saying, I got this already. But just being aware of that, kind of watching as people enter as much as possible to see where they are kind of emotionally, and just letting them know that they're gonna be safe in this space as much as you're able, and encouraging your patrons that are participating in the program to be part of that too. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Cognitive engagement is really what they're thinking about in the learning space. Are they connecting with the material that you're putting out there? And this, you kind of have to be conscious of throughout your program. You can't just assume, oh, I put it up on the whiteboard, everybody's got it. You kind of have to constantly be reassessing. And I know, Erin, I've seen you in your STEM programming, your Mad Science Club, you're always kind of checking in. Does this make sense? Do you understand what we're talking about? Do you have any questions? And trying to really keep them a part of that, because there's no point in teaching a coding class if somebody's going to walk out of it and not have any idea what they just spent the hour doing. So that cognitive engagement is kind of a constant assessment. And then behavioral engagement. This is the actions of your patron or your student. Sometimes their behavior is going to be great. Sometimes they're walking in and they've had like a really rotten day. And you're going to have to obviously cope with that. If you've been doing program, you know that. But having plans from the beginning of what you can do to help with that can be really important. In my physical makerspace, I have a box of fidgets for kids that maybe are struggling with sitting still after a full day of school, for example. I try to make sure I have boxes of activities that if they're not really connecting with what we're doing right this minute, I may have a coloring page or something that they can do, take themselves out of that moment, and then come back in. And I always remind folks, you are here of your own free choice. It's not school. You don't have to stay for the entire thing. If you feel like after 20 minutes, you need to take a break, you can do that. You know, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'll be back with more programs. So just be aware of those types of engagement. Some of it you can control, some of it you're never going to be able to control. You have most control over the cognitive engagement, okay? But where kids are emotionally, all you can really do, or where patrons, I tend to work with kids, I keep on saying that, but where they are emotionally, that's going to be something that you can be very welcoming and try and enhance, but be emotional and behavioral, you have less control over than cognitive. So really try to make sure that you're engaging with the cognitive level and just being welcoming and understanding for the others. All right, rules of engagement. And I would love, you know, for you to share in chat some ways that you engage your patrons and get them right into that space and right into that thinking space when they come in. I always like to provide a warm-up, some kind of an activity that they can do like the moment they come in, so that in that, you know, 5 or 10 minutes, either online or in the makerspace, where there's kind of that chaos, you try and focus that chaos with something to do. So warming up the mind, like today with the Jamboard. Hey, you got to maybe use something new that you haven't used before, share some ideas, and it gives you something to do. So you've already kind of clicked in to what we're about today. Goals and expectations. And I think a lot of us has probably experienced that if you aren't really clear up front what you plan to do today, that can lead to a lot of questions. It may steal time. It can lead to maybe people not understanding what their role is. So setting really clear goals and expectations right at the start can seem like it might be limiting, but it can actually really engage your patrons even more. Encouraging collaboration and connection. Any kind of maker activity, any kind of STEM activity, any kind of gaming activity, all of these things really they're really about sharing what you've made and sharing what you're creating. So encourage collaboration, encourage kids and patrons to meet new people, maybe mix up those groups a little bit so they're not always working with the same 2 or 3 people, because you never know what new connections you're going to make. Accountability, you know, especially from a safety context. If I say don't use equipment until I invite you to use equipment, that's usually the phrase I use. I'll say, please don't touch anything until I've invited you to touch it. But really have that expectation and set your bar high. There's nothing wrong with saying this space is a special space. What we're doing is a special program, and we really want to make sure that everybody has the best experience possible. To do that, here's what I expect. Here's what you know, what my accountability is. And if you have someone that is not able to be part of your program in a safe way, you don't have to be mean, you don't have to call them out, but you might want to pull them aside and say, hey, would you rather go read for a little bit? Do you need a little timeout? Do you need a fidget? Because usually kids, when they're getting, especially kids, and sometimes my seniors actually, when they're getting real fidgety or when they're getting really almost like distracting or kind of pushing back, a lot of times there's other things going on that's causing that. And they may just need a break. They may just need kind of a change of pace. They may just need you stopping for a second and giving them full on attention. So offer the ability to kind of withdraw, be okay with telling someone that they have to leave if they have to leave, because your goal is to provide the best program for everybody in the room and the safest program. Offer choices. I think we all probably know that. Like, you don't want to give everybody in a craft class the same color fabric, for example. Let them get to choose what color they want. That also builds the idea that empowering of, I'm showing my personality, I'm showing my creativity. And the more choices you can offer like that, the more that they're going to care about what they're creating. Keeping it personal and keeping it real world. Right now we have a lot going on in the world. Use those as opportunities and give people the freedom to say, you know, I'm really not interested. Maybe today I don't want to make a tower. Maybe I want to make, you know, something else that's nice and tall that I'm blanking on. I don't know, I want to make a tree. As long as they're kind of keeping with you on what your goal for the project is, and they want to make a tree instead of a tower, they can call it a tree instead of a tower. Okay, it's not the end of the world. Appreciate the work. One thing I try to make sure I'm doing all the time when I'm doing a program is walking around and just commenting on little things that are great about somebody's project. It can just be, oh, I love gold and green together. That's one of my favorite color combinations. Or, wow, that's really a smart way to use the pasta. But instead of trying to like give a big assessment at the end, just little bits of appreciation, keep them motivated through the challenge. And sometimes some folks are going to need to hear that really regularly, some not as much. But I find that when I take the time to appreciate my patrons' work, they start appreciating other people's work. And you build, again, that community and that collaboration that can really transform a basic program into something that's magic. Mix it up, okay? Don't always do the same format. I know we all do that, right? Like you're doing, okay, I'm doing my Friday STEAM. No big deal, I'm gonna do the same format. But mix it up sometimes, especially if you have regulars that are coming every week. You got to kind of throw them a curveball once in a while. Otherwise, they're not going to keep coming. I mean, that's just the truth of it. And then obviously a little challenging in this world, but you want to keep kids and adults moving a little bit. If you just are sitting on a bench for like an hour, hour and a half, that's not fun for anybody. I know we're all probably experiencing that right now. I know I already want to get up out of my chair. So I welcome you. If you're not on camera, get up and dance. It's okay. You don't have to sit and stare at a screen. That is okay to do. And you can do that with online programs too. There's no reason that you can't tell everybody, all right, for the next 5 minutes, we're going to like show our best Vogue moves to the camera or whatever. So don't forget that sitting still is often hard for creativity. And I am seeing, let me take a look in the chat here real quick. Conducting programs virtually, connection, communication. Yes, Doug, absolutely. Okay, we are seeing some great chat. So make sure you're sharing. Yeah, I see we're going to talk some about sending kits home. I see Caitlin and Margot are asking about sending kits with the kids, and we are absolutely going to talk about that because that is, again, part of that equity that we were talking about. All right. How to get folks' attention. Right now, I think we are facing kind of one of the hardest times in the whole world
Thank you.
to get people's attention, right? How do we get people to pay attention to what the heck we're doing, what we're offering? So I like to find whatever trends, and I think Christina, you do this so well, finding different trends that are out there right now and using them. And I'm going to say, guys, you see the little Jamboard icon is up here. Okay, so if you want to head over to Jamboard again, let me put that link in the chat. Where'd my link go? Here we go. In the chat. Oh, and I see people using Instagram for their programs. So there's our Jamboard. Our question right now is, what are some trends that you can use for your programs? What are you following? Like, are you doing anime? Are you doing Pokemon? Are you doing gaming? Christina, maybe you could jump in here and just give us what are some of the trends right now that the tweens and teens are really into?
I think right now, especially with the Anime Club, which I just started during this quarantine with the library being closed physically, they have really been into certain animes. So then I've been able to like follow those and follow those people. They really like Fairy Tail, that anime. They like a lot of magical girl animes, even older ones, which is surprising, like 30-year-old animes they're into. And I've just kind of signed up for everything like Viz Media. I've signed up for that for my work email, Funimation, all the big companies I follow, the Dark Horse Comics. And because of what they like, I've been making a list. So when we go back, these are things that we can buy and hopefully they'll serve, is what I'm thinking. So, I do follow a lot of things on social media, my personal social medias too, just so I definitely see it all the time to see what's trending. And I do have a Twitter, so that helps a lot.
Absolutely. So, and part of that comes down to knowing, and that's kind of this third point here, is knowing who your population is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to know who you're targeting with your program, and it needs to be really clear in your head. And I think we all kind of know that, but I know I can get a little lazy about it sometimes. Like, I'm just like, oh, this is something I want to do, but is it really what they want to do? And sometimes you have to just stop and actually ask them. Like, Christina, you just had this happen where your anime club suddenly kind of morphed into wanting to do cosplay, right?
Yeah. So they've all wanted to do cosplay. The first few times I met, some of the kids actually came in their cosplay, which I think a lot of them was from the anime Fairy Tail. And I asked them, I said, do you want to do like a cosplay party one time? And they really like the idea of that. So I'm probably going to shoot that for July. I mean, everything's kind of up in the air with what's going on right now, but I'm going to try to shoot for a virtual cosplay party in July because they really like that. And that's not something I thought of to begin with. Like, I wouldn't have came up with that idea myself. So I did have to listen to them. And there are quite a few animes that I wouldn't have chosen to watch, but listening to the suggestions and whatnot, like I was able to discover things, that maybe I didn't like, but they all really liked. So that's a good thing.
Right.
I just have to be open to the other people's ideas, not just like personally what I want to watch. So
yeah, and I guess that's really important, is you have to ask your patrons what you want. You have to find out what they're interested in. Do a Google survey. Get out, do some comment cards. In education, we often do what we call exit questions, where to check in and see, did they understand the concepts we were talking about? But you can use that same idea before folks leave, like, hey, in the box, throw one topic or one activity that you want to do next. What craft do you want to try? Are you interested in, what kind of science do you want to learn? But give them the opportunity to speak. Obviously, you want to make sure you have a good sense of what your population is, the age, interest level, ability. And if you don't have this information, I guarantee someone at your library does, okay? And they will be able to help you figure out who's showing up for programming. I'm seeing some folks are saying recent songs and movies and books. You can talk to, your other staff members and find out what books are really popular right now. What movies is everybody watching? Those are things you can build programming around, and you're going to have an automatic audience and people are going to show up. We work very hard because we have a former graphic designer as our library director. So at the Southwest branch, we work really hard on creating awesome visuals, making amazing posters, being really clear about what we offer. So when I'm doing virtual programming right now, every one of my activities has a list of suggested materials that you are going to want to have on hand when I'm doing a live stream. So more clarity will kind of, especially with virtual programming, will really kind of reduce that tension level people might have. If you have folks on your staff that are really good at writing punchy headlines or coming up with titles for your events, lean on them, learn from them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Find that person who's really good at writing a description and ask them to look over your description. You know, the more you can kind of collaborate ourselves as we make programs, the more we're going to have better programs that we're offering to our patrons. And of course, share it everywhere. Christina mentioned that she's on social media. Social media is king. Whether or not you like it, whether or not you're comfortable with it, it's the reality of where we are right now. So talk to your library about using social media and what their guidelines are. You can have a personal account, and I do interact with patrons, you know, through my personal accounts. You have to be kind of careful with that, because every now and again, I'm sure we've all experienced, you might get one or two people that, you know, can be a little frightening, or maybe are struggling through their own things. And you may want to restrict some of that, but you want to get your content out everywhere. And that comes to where we're going to go with my next bit, which is making friends. You want to reach out to everybody, because there's no way that you can share your event or share what you're offering to every person in the community, right? You're going to need help doing that. So I have a couple of ideas for places that we've reached out and made friends, but I'd love if you head over to Jamboard again and just share what are some groups that you're working with at your library? What are some friends that you've made to help increase your community? Because as you do that, I'm putting a link up there, putting a link for that again. Sorry, trying to do too many things at once. Your local schools, I think this is a no-brainer. Most of us have probably reached out to all of our local schools. Really build a relationship. For example, I go into some of their gifted and talented programs or their after-school programs and give little lessons on 3D printing, and then teach them how to send their prints to the library so that they can be printed out and shared. So that's one way I'm going into the schools. I'm not just sending stuff for the newsletter. I'm building connections with the educators and with the students. And that means that then they're more likely to come into programs when we have them, because they feel like they already have that connection. It's not scary. Community groups, right? Girls and Boy Scouts are huge. We started doing badge programs for our local Girl Scout troops, and we have maxed out our programs every single time we've offered that. So we must have done, I think, 100 badges in 1 month, the engineering badges for our local Girl Scouts. And now we have allies who are going to spread the word about what we're doing. 4-H, another great one. I get a lot of 4-H kids at my programs at certain branches, and they are really huge on, if you can align to what their clubs are working on, they will do all the work of sharing that program for you. Gardening club, churches. I know in some cases you may be close with churches, you may have a lot of churches in your town, other towns may not. We happen to be in an area with a whole lot of churches, especially in our homeschooling community. They are a great place to outreach, and there's nothing wrong with asking if they'll share a special program in their bulletin for the community, because again, that's just another place that you can let people know what you're doing. Tech schools, especially if you're doing STEM programming or STEAM, your technology, your local tech is probably interested in at least getting kids to volunteer. Honor societies, those kids are always looking for volunteer hours. So those are great places where you can get some of those teens in, have them get those volunteer hours that they need, and then say, hey, do you happen to like anime? Maybe you should come to our anime program later on this week and become part of that. Oh, I'm seeing a large homeschooling community and fans of Beyblade tournaments. That's over on the Jamboard being offered. And this is a great idea. Reaching out to your local juvenile correction center, okay? Because we have kids that we want to rehabilitate, right? And as a public group, as a community group, as an offering to our communities, that's a great place to see how we can help build programming. Homeschoolers, I homeschooled my daughter, Katie, for about 4 years. So I made a lot of great connections with homeschoolers. There are local co-ops in your area, I guarantee. There are lots of online groups. They love using Facebook groups. There's no reason that you can't find the local groups and just say, hey, I work for the library. I'm offering this kind of programming. Do you mind if I share it with your members? One of the #1 things homeschoolers are looking for is science and math programming, and we provide that. So that's a really huge need in many communities. I actually do a homeschool meetup once a month. Everybody just brings their lunch. We put out games, but it's a good opportunity for me to let them know what programs I'm offering and to find out what their needs are so I can design programming for them. So that's like really huge. Oh, I see. Yeah, I see in chat, we're talking about the digital divide, and we are going to talk some more about some more ways we can deal with that. Erin, I just want to put you on for a second, if you don't mind. I know that you've done some work with our local seniors, and that was really successful. Are you there? I'm going to unmute you. Oh no, it's not letting.
Sorry, I'm here.
No worries.
So I actually was friendly with a patron who happened to be the president of the local AARP, and we started off by doing TV series recommendations, and he liked a lot of like BBC stuff, and that's how we kind of started this little rapport. And it turns out he's this president of the AARP, and then he asked me to come and talk about the library. Because he said so many people don't know what we have to offer, and he said it's crazy that they're not taking advantage of it. So I went in and talked at this. I went to like Finnegan's Pub or whatever it was. It was some kind of like bar restaurant, and there were over 250 seniors in that room. I did not expect that many people. And you know, they came, they had like a normal meeting, and then I talked for about 20 minutes, and I told them about all the things that the library offered. I did have only a couple people approach me after my talk. And it turned out that, and then one asked me like, how does he get it? Something off his cell phone, his smartphone, he didn't know how to use it. And then another woman said that she thinks I went to college with her daughter, which made me feel really old. So then later on, I had a bunch of new patrons come into our library, and then they told me that they confessed how embarrassed they were because they did not know all the wonderful things that we do. And then we actually got a bunch of new patrons coming in, and then they shared with their friends, and they shared with their friends, and word of mouth. So we actually got a whole bunch of new patrons, a lot of people coming to activities, a lot of suggestions. I also, Bob is my buddy there. He actually knew a lot of people. Like I wanted someone to come in and teach people how to play poker. So he actually knew he actually is a per diem economics professor who loves poker, and he came in and taught people how to play poker. So you never know where things are going to lead, and one person can lead to all these wonderful things. It was kind of a random kind of connection, but it worked for us. I thought it was kind of a good thing to do. So if you're looking for your seniors, go contact those groups, especially because they meet religiously. They're always busy. They're always organizing. Organized people are really great people to facilitate information to, because you know they're going to get the info.
That is so true. Very, very true. Okay. Why is it now? I can only see you. Okay, that's fine. That's what it wants to do now. So one other thing, especially as we're doing online and virtual programming, everybody, these friends, these people that you're engaging with will help amplify on Facebook or on Instagram, or just even in their emailed newsletter, what you're offering. Okay, so if you've got a survey, I did a survey on what people wanted for coding classes over the summer. And I shared it with a couple of the homeschoolers I knew. Well, they made sure it went out to every homeschooler, every homeschooler. So building those connections, that's going to get you more people coming in and knowing about your online programs. The other thing that they can be really good about doing, and I've seen this not at our library yet, but at other libraries, where you could say to 4-H, I really want to do this program. I have no way to get materials into the hands of the kids. Can you help me out? And those kinds of groups may have the organization, as Erin mentioned, to get materials to people that we may not be able to do when we're still trying to figure out curbside pickup, right? So there's no reason that you can't say, hey, Girl Scouts, is there some way that you can help me get, make and take kits out into the community, and see what kinds of innovative solutions you can come up with, because that's going to make a big difference in what you're able to provide. All right, so how do we actually select our programming? And this is going to vary a lot by where you are as far as what you're able to offer. What slide am I on? I don't even know. Okay, so I'm going to send another quick poll out because I'm just trying to get a sense of how everybody is offering their programming this particular year, this particular summer. So let me know what type of programming you're offering this summer. Oh, and I did it again. I keep wanting to click the poll. Wow, you guys are on it. You guys are fast. So I see a lot of STEM, a lot of STEAM. Some people aren't really sure yet. STEAM is winning. Go STEAM, go STEAM. Okay. There are limitless options to what we can offer, right? Traditional crafting, always a good option. Gaming, fan clubs, gaining a lot of traction. More and more gamers, more and more fans of different comic books and movies are out there. Robotics and coding, much tougher to do in an online environment, right? Not everybody has a robotics kit sitting around. But classic science, classic engineering activities, teaching those cycles can be really good, and they reinforce what kids have learned over the year. For example, if you're teaching to kids, and maybe preventing some of that summer slide. But for me, I have found STEM is highly desirable content. STEAM is really fun content. And then our maker education tends to be really nice open programming. But there are other options. There's STREAM, where you add in reading. That can be really great for library settings, design thinking, invention education, problem-based learning. There's so many different potential types of programming out there. We're going to kind of focus in on just the three that we've used the most. And it looks like STEAM is, everybody's a pretty big fan of STEAM. So that is one that we will talk about. All right. So STEM. Basically, it's an integration of science, technology, engineering, and math. And ideally, an activity should have some aspect of all four of those things to really be a STEM activity. Usually, you start with a question. It's very inquiry-based. It provides a lot of room for critical thinking and problem solving. Brainstorming is really important, and collaboration is really important. I often try to get kids to work in teams when possible in STEM programming. This content is very hot right now because it's in all the schools. So it does provide a really easy way to get people interested, because everybody's like, oh, STEM, I've heard of that before. I want to do that. However, as we know, a lot of people now are looking towards STEAM programming, where you add in the arts. And what this does is it provides the same kind of topics that STEM might talk about, but really focuses on creativity and design. And it opens it up for kids that might not think of themselves as being good at science or math. Now it can be, well, if you're really more into the artistic side, why don't you do that? And you'll learn some science and some technology while you're doing that. The other nice thing is now you can include cultural studies. You can include fine arts, history, literature. You can pull in more crafting. You can just go really into design thinking with a STEAM program. It also tends to touch base with your community a little bit more, because sometimes with a STEAM activity, you're making something beautiful to put in your library. You're making something beautiful to share in the community. And of course, it's great for literacy connections. So STEM can be almost, it often feels a little more academic, whereas STEAM feels a little more playful. And then you get to maker education, where it's like, oh, we're just going to break all the rules now, okay? And you're not constrained by traditional subject areas. In fact, maker education is all about mashing up things that maybe somebody didn't think to mash together. And it's very student-led. So if you are someone that likes to present an idea and kind of hang back and just watch what kids make, maker education may be the thing for you, because the goal is to really let your student, your patron, decide what path to take through the activity. It incorporates a little bit more play, a lot of tinkering and just skill building, and a lot more risk taking. Sometimes a STEM program, people can be very focused on the output, you know, on what am I learning? Am I getting the right answer? Now, you don't want them to be thinking too much about what is the right answer, but that tends to be a thing because a lot of kids especially are coming to STEM having done STEM in school. So they can make that association, where sometimes a STEAM program or maker education program, it's not as academic for them. And maker education, the big strength there is that it does teach kids to take risks, to make mistakes, to fail, and to fail forward. And those are really important things for our patrons right now. The world is changing. It's scary. Being okay with challenges, being okay with change can be really, can set a kind of mindfulness that can be really helpful for everybody's stress level right now. One thing I will mention, especially bringing up the stress issue, right now, repetitive activities, teaching people to knit or crochet, making things out of paper that you can kind of do the same thing over and over again and build out and build something bigger. Those kind of repetitive tasks work the same way meditation does and can really help reduce stress levels and anxiety levels for your patrons. And maker and craft activities particularly offer that opportunity. So that's kind of 3 of the basics, all tie into each other, but kind of different focus of where you want to go. So STEM, you're really focused more on the technology, the science, the engineering. It's a little more academic. STEAM, you're now bringing in design, bringing in creativity and art. So you want to be a little more just aware of how things are, how things look, and how you're bringing in creativity to what you're doing. And the maker education is really about risk taking and innovation. Okay. That said, you know, you do not have to do it just one way. You can mash it up and make your own model of what will work best for you. Okay. Don't think that, oh, I call this a STEM program, I better make sure I've got, you know, a math activity in there. Math can be as easy as measuring, you know, from the nose to the end of your finger, that's almost a yard. That's how much yarn you need. Don't get too worried about the details. Let it be flexible, fit your model to the content you want to present. Or if you know that you want to do a STEAM program, let that guide your content. Okay, so give yourself permission to play with how you present these things. And it is absolutely okay if you know that you like STEM and that's what you want to do, give yourself permission to have the favorite. Okay, you don't have to be the master of all. If you love crafting and you love sewing and that's what you want to do with your patrons, awesome, because your passion matters. The other thing is allow programs to transform while they're in action. I've had programs I thought were going to be pretty straightforward STEM activities, and then they just morphed and became something more or different. That's okay. You are allowed to do that. And if you're having fun doing that and you're being flexible, you're modeling that for your patrons, and they're going to be more engaged. They're going to have more fun. Yeah, I see Carolyn is actually saying in the chat that she's seeing less of an interest in STEM, STEAM, and Maker because so much school curriculum is there. Then it might be in your context, you need to be going back to traditional crafts, traditional skills. One of the maker camps I'm offering this summer is going to be literally how to use a hammer. Okay, you can step back a little bit and kind of present it from another angle. All right, so at the end of the day, what should you offer? And guys, I want to see you in chat. Okay, tell me what your goals are. What do you want to offer? Like at its core, do you know I want to do STEM and I want to do STEM on this topic? So think about your patrons' wants and needs and limitations. Think about what materials and equipment you have. Okay, do you have access to curbside pickup where you can do maker kits? Or are the kids going to have to use all stuff that they find around the house? Do you have a big budget where you can buy kit elements? Or are you always kind of, you know, begging, you know, patrons to bring in things? Knowing what materials you have really guides your programming. And then know what your goal is for teaching or presenting a specific content. If you have a branch, you have a space where the kids aren't getting coding in class, or you know that homeschoolers are struggling with coding, you want to plan like a 10 a.m. meetup for coding, maybe not an after school project. If the school kids are doing coding and the homeschool kids aren't, you need to know what your goal is so that you can figure out when best to offer it so you can get the most engagement and get the most attendance. So let me take a look and see what we've got in chat. And you also do need to know your own strengths, okay? I want to offer something for everyone that keeps teens and preteens engaged. Yes, that is the holy grail, right? The teens and the preteens, trying to get them to come in. And I see Carla's asking for a small library, and we will definitely talk about that with the Q&A, which is coming up shortly, and maybe brainstorm some of these ideas. So, think about what your goal is. I find that, and you guys are going to see, because I'm going to share my planning document for the year. If I really know exactly what I want to offer with a program, it makes it much easier for me to put that together and to really design a good program that's going to be exciting for kids and for my patrons. Trying to offer challenges that use materials from home. I am in the same boat. I do not know that I'm going to be able to do material kits for anybody. So everything I'm doing, all of my maker programs are using things that people should be able to find at home or at the grocery store. And that is a huge challenge this year. Okay, no doubt about it. But there are many ways that you can accomplish that. And keep in mind, a maker program can be about just the design experience. Okay. All right. So let's share some resources. Where do we go for projects? Where do we go when we're trying to find like a really good project? These are some of my favorites. I'm going to post in the chat. I've got a Jamboard set up for this, and maybe we can share some resources. Last summer offered, I'm seeing marshmallow catapults. Oh, you cannot go wrong with marshmallows. Everybody loves marshmallows. So some places I go for projects. You do not have to invent every program yourself. Give yourself permission to reuse somebody's good idea, okay? And then build on it if you want to, personalize it. But books, DK Publishing, McGraw-Hill, No Scratch, and Make Media have fantastic resources for STEM, STEAM, and maker programs. I will mention, like I said, I have a book. I think it's pretty cool. It's got about 100 ideas in there. And that's with McGraw-Hill. But Kathy Cesare has like 5 different books on everything from robotics to edible inventions through Make Media. Those are fantastic. DK Publishing has a ton of makerspace books. McGraw-Hill has several makerspace books. They've got 3D printing, even a musical inventions book as well. So, we're librarians. We like books. If you are able to have access to your collection, put that to good use. And then what's nice about that is you can say to a mom, wow, my kid loved this. Here, go and check out this book and take it home with you and do more of those projects. All right, DIY.org, makered.org, Instructables. I'm seeing some great websites up there. Exploratorium, Teach Engineering, Discovery, Instructables, I love. Make Projects is relatively new, but they have a lot of great stuff going up there. Share your resources. I think we're all probably on Pinterest more than we mean to be, but that's a great place to get ideas. Join some Facebook groups. If you haven't already joined the Programming Librarians group on Facebook, definitely check that out. Really good, active group. Lots of great ideas. Twitter. I know Twitter can be a bit of a cesspool sometimes, but it's also a really great place to find other educators and other librarians and form your PLN, your personal learning network. So I do use Twitter a lot, and I block out all the crud. It's really about curating who you're following, but Twitter can be a great place because I have really loved getting to know some of the educators I found there. Obviously, email lists like the one Doug maintains are invaluable, and then conferences and workshops like this. If you know of any great conferences coming up, please, please, please go ahead and share that. And thank you, Doug, for sharing the Programming Librarians Interest Group. Ooh, a paper airplane contest. That is a great idea. Okay, so sometimes it can be overwhelming with the projects, right? Like there's so many resources. Give yourself permission to say, I'm going to use 1 or 2 books this summer because I really like just the take that they have, and that's what I'm going to use. You do not, again, you don't have to do it all. Do not overwhelm yourself. Focus on something that you really are curious about and really want to do, and make it really, really good. And that's going to get people coming back. If you just try and throw everything at them, you're not going to get as much success because it has to be something that you really love. So if you find a book that just really captures your attention that's the one for you. If you find a website that just really speaks to you, that's the one for you. Don't feel like you have to do something from all of Pinterest, okay? All right, adapting to the COVID world. We've talked about some of this, so I'm gonna make this quick because I want to get to our Q&A. Go ahead and share in chat some of your challenges. I know we are having them, right? I'm gonna go and offer a little poll here. Where are we all offering our programs this summer? So technology, I think anyone who's done an online program has had this happen. Your Wi-Fi goes down. For some reason, your microphone isn't working. Those things are gonna happen. Wow, so far, everybody is online. Oh gosh, wow, guys, I feel it in my heart right now. Yeah, and some of us aren't sure. And yeah, that's definitely a problem. I'm seeing hybrids. But yeah, it looks like almost 90% of us are online this summer. So we're all dealing with these problems. Technology is going to be an issue. You're going to have to work with your IT department. And give yourself a break, okay? If you make a mistake online or your microphone cuts out or your Wi-Fi dies, understand that everybody knows how this is right now. We're all very well aware of the fact that technology is a pain. Plan additional time because it never works right the first time. Erin, I know you were the first to do recorded video. And do you want to speak to that real quick? Yeah, Erin has been our video queen.
So we were trying to figure out a way to do my internet connection at my house. I live in the country and my internet is terrible. So there's like one provider and they suck, and that's our only choice. So internet is spotty to say the least. And so my only way of producing a quality story time every week was to pre-record it. So then I could post it on Facebook and it would just go on. Which by the way, changes its time all the time. So you have to like check to that it changed it from 10 to 10:15 for some reason. That kept happening. So I found a company because our local high school uses it. It's called WeVideo. And the local high school, and we're always looking for programs to link in our teens because our teens are probably they don't come in the library as often. It's harder to get them in. So I figured if we get this program, we learn how to use it, we can do programs with the local teens when we can resume programming. So it was kind of like a forward reach idea. And WeVideo was basically like, it's an online platform that you basically can record and edit your own videos. It took a while to learn. It's, got a big learning curve. It took a bunch of hours to kind of figure out. But now, it's pretty quick. Once you do it once, you struggle the first time you do it. And then the next time you do it, you're like, I know what I'm doing. I can do this so much faster now. So it's, so a bunch of other people, I can encourage a bunch of other people in our library to do it. And WeVideo gave us a free license for 200 licenses until June 30th. Which was really nice because technically we're not a school, but we were a learning institution, so they gave it to us. So I thought that was pretty nice. You can always reach out to these tech people and ask, hey, what do you have for us? Can you offer us something for free? Because I have gotten that. Kahoot right now, I actually got I'm doing a trivia night, and I got a Kahoot account, a Prime account, premium account for free. So there's a lot of free things that you can do right now that normally aren't. See if it works for you, see if it's something you want to do in the future. So I think the idea is to try things out and see if can you use it later. We do think that we're going to be doing virtual for a while. Probably even when we do reopen, we probably will still have virtual opportunities for people. Because again, there could be a resurgence of COVID as well. So we have to forward think. I mean, it's doomsday stuff, but you do have to think what could happen again, and that could happen again. So you really do have to think outside the box too, like where is your future of the library going? What are we going to be doing? So, but anyway, WeVideo was a great opportunity to kind of try something new, and so now I'm do video editing for the library.
And and not everybody has the same comfort level, right? And so that can be tough because you're seeing a redistribution of like duties here sometimes on the fly, which can be really challenging. And I know that with recorded video, and we've kind of talked about this before, you don't feel as connected. You feel like you're talking to a little camera instead of really being able to interact with patrons. And that I know is really hard for me. Erin, I know it's hard for you. Christina, you're in a little bit different situation because you're doing more like synchronous, you're with the kids in like Discord, and that helps, right?
Yeah, it definitely helps. I haven't done any, I think I did one pre-recorded video, but mainly after that, I just did Zoom because I like having the connection there. So with Zoom, I really haven't had any problems. I think one time my internet went out, but and I had to reboot it. So it was like 3 or maybe 5 minutes, I was gone, and the kids were fine by themselves, in all honesty. And then, yeah, I've been using the Zoom, and then I did create a Discord. I created 3 servers. I created a server for my Pokemon club, my anime club, and also like for the gaming. So when I do online gaming with the kids, if there's problems, it's easier to live chat me because I can't see them, unfortunately, with the Nintendo Switch or anything like that. So the Discord's been really helpful. And actually, I would think when we do reopen and we have the regular normal, I would like to keep the Discord because I'm able to really like connect with the kids easily and say like, hey, this is what's going on. And also they'll tell me exactly what they want instead of, where their parents are there and it's kind of like, you can't really talk to them directly necessarily all the time. So it is easier to get the word out and hear what they want. So the Discord's been a really, really good tool.
Yeah. How large a group do you typically have if you're doing a Zoom or a Discord?
I've capped it at 10 just because it's easier for me to keep an eye on everyone. If it's more than that, it's a little hard for me.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I think a lot of us are struggling with that because you'd rather be able to really interact with the kids and keep a little more control on those kind of programs when you're doing them. So that's a good tip.
Yeah, especially with the Pokemon Club. Those kids are a little bit younger, so they're more excitable. So it's harder to hear everybody sometimes. So it's easier with a tinier group than a larger group.
And that brings me to that bullet point of communication modes have changed.
It's not as
Any teacher will tell you.
Yeah, it's not as easy to use my teacher voice via Zoom than in a physical space where I'm with them. So yeah, it's a little harder to control them at times. They get really excited. So
yeah.
And
I see in the comments too that Facebook Live tends to be, especially for certain populations, if you are aiming towards, adult women that want to do crafts, Facebook Live is the place you're going to get interaction, right? So again, it comes back to knowing your audience, knowing your goal. What do you want your program to look like? And that matters online or offline. So if you're working with gamer kids, Discord is where you want to be, right? But if you're shooting for maybe soccer moms who really want to learn sewing, Facebook Live might be the better choice. So you kind of, and if you're doing something very technical, like Erin, I know you do story times too, and someone brought up performance rights and being able to have a video that's pre-recorded, that everything is safe, that you're allowed to use, and that we could take down if we need to, that may be the better option. So you have to be really flexible with what format you're doing your online programs as, and again, it comes down to knowing your content.
And it's not just the books, it's the songs too.
Oh, so that's so true.
About the copywriting of the songs, which is actually more difficult than the books.
Yeah, it is. It's a real challenge because, when you're just with a group in your conference room, you don't have to think about, is YouTube going to care that I'm sharing this song? But YouTube will certainly care. And I see, Christina, sharing about how you have some of those quiet kids and they're introverts, but this actually works better for them, which is pretty exciting too, because that's some of our opportunities here, right? Sometimes you get an unexpected benefit and you may be reaching a wider audience. It can be easier for those that can't travel for whatever reason. Again, that's an equity issue. Not all families have 2 cars. Not all families can afford public transportation. Okay, but maybe they have a working smartphone and they can still engage in that content on that smartphone. Introverted patrons. I know I would have loved this stuff as a kid. I was so shy. I would have loved to be able to hang out in the back and see what other people are creating. Again, if you have people that with disabilities, this may be actually an easier way for them to interact with content if they can't physically get into the space. You can reuse your content multiple times, which is really nice for recorded videos. And it gives you a lot of different ways to interact with your patrons. So you can sometimes actually end up with a larger audience as a result of this. And so if you have some things that have been positive about doing online programs that you want to share, let's all take a moment to cheer ourselves up here. It's not there are good things about this change too. So one thing I do want to recommend, if it's possible, find ways to keep the learning going when you're not with your patrons. Doug, in our group, we've been talking a lot about synchronous versus asynchronous learning, right? So you have the synchronous element where you're all together in your live stream or your Zoom, but things like Google Classroom, Seesaw, Wakelet, all these things give you chances for patrons, Slack for teens, for your patrons to continue talking outside of that program. And that's going to increase engagement too. That's going to keep them coming back. So like I'm offering TREPS, which is an online, or it's not supposed to be online, it's supposed to be a normal entrepreneurship program, but I'm offering it this year. And we're going to be using Google Classroom as a way to stay in touch between lessons. So don't be afraid to try those sorts of things. Oh, Harry Potter made a Kahoot. Cool, Erin. So another way to keep engagement going and to keep people interested in your online content is to give them multiple opportunities to interact with that content. And this is just, I'm going to share this presentation with you so you can go through and click all these different things to see what they're about. But ask your educator friends what they're using with kids in the classroom, because I guarantee they can tell you what apps work and which ones don't and which ones not to waste your time on. And if you have any that you're using, please don't be afraid to share them. We'd love to know. Okay. Some of us may be doing hybridized programs. So coloring in puzzle sheets that you can either share online or print out. With a coloring contest, have her share it online as a PDF. Everybody colors it, takes a picture, hashtags it with your library, and then you can make a gallery of all of those pictures. Really easy way to get people engaged. Make and take kits if you have the ability, and I know all of us in New Jersey are waiting to hear if we're going to have the ability. You can work that into part of your curbside. I also saw some friends groups, I think Plainfield, their friends group did a bunch of make and take kits through the food pantry. And that was a great way for their library friends group to kind of work with the librarians, but then they took on the actual work of getting those kits out. Classes online, scheduled time in the makerspace. So what you can do is to limit and to socially distance, offer a lot of the content upfront online, and then say, schedule a time with just your family to come into the makerspace and try this hands-on. Okay, that's a model that might work if you can do hybrid programming. And then there are things like take the class online and pick up your product. Great if you're doing 3D printing. They don't physically have to be in your makerspace or in your library to learn that. You can just print the item and then they can pick it up as part of curbside. And then I know some of us are introducing programs where you can borrow equipment and things like that, and that can be really great. Flipgrid, yeah, I love Flipgrid so much. Guys, if you haven't checked out Flipgrid, definitely check that out. It's a great, great app. And for those of you that are going to be doing socially distanced programs, be real careful to check your guidelines. Okay, make sure, mark on the ground, proper spacing, just like we do in the stores. Move your tables and chairs. We actually have talked about removing half of our tables and chairs from the library. I'm sure you guys are having those conversations. Lots of additional safety equipment. Make sure you have safe hand washing or hand sanitation. Think about your air conditioning systems, because you need to be very aware of where airflow is coming from. It's going to take a lot extra time for sanitation in between programs. You're going to give yourself that extra half hour because you're going to have to clean everything. And you may have to check the health of your patrons when they enter or when they participate. So these are all things that people are talking about right now. I will share a PDF from a conference I went to this weekend that has a lot of issues that you can think of that you may be able to use with your team, and I will share that out. All right, whew, enough of me talking. Are we done listening to me? Because I'm done listening to me. All right, I am going to see what questions we have, and we can unmute, or you can unmute if you want to ask some questions. I'm going to stop screen sharing so we can see each other's faces for this, because I feel like maybe that'll be a little more personal, and we'll come back to this in a little bit. Okay. So let's see, what questions do we have here? I'm going to check. We have a little Google document. I know some people have been putting things in there. Let's see. How would a very small library offer STEM or STEAM programming? Any suggestions on that? Anybody want to chime in with some suggestions for small libraries? You're going to leave me hanging, aren't you?
Well, who's going to talk?
We actually run a STEM lab, and we oversee the state's libraries. So we do a lot of stuff like roly-polies, hiking. We're right near the river. We can walk them down and, talk about fish and then take them to see fish. Work with DC. We have natural resources and environmental protection are separate agencies, and they love working with you. Project Wet is like $25. Project Wild is the animal version, and they even do one for really little kids called Growing Up Wild. So there's a ton of environmental organizations out there, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
And that's really awesome because, again, you're not trying to provide materials because they're going out into the natural world and they're finding the materials that they need. They're finding things. That's something that you can easily adapt. I mean, I expect with doing a video maybe in advance and then engaging the kids, especially if they have smartphones available. You might even be able to do a Zoom class on a smartphone at various rivers if you can't physically all be together. So that sounds like a really adaptable option that's going to fit a budget that might be small. Like you said, Project Wet I used to do when I was in a science classroom, and it's inexpensive. The binder comes, it's got it all kind of really well planned out for you. So that's a great idea. Thank you, William. Anybody else have some suggestions for smaller libraries offering STEAM or STEM? Anybody else? Okay. Let's see, we had another question. Trying to put together challenges that use materials for that are basically recycled materials or upcycled materials. What are some upcycled projects that people have? Anybody want to share? Because this is my whole life this summer is going to be upcycled projects.
I've used some upcycled materials and crafts. I've used like the K-cups before.
Oh, that's a good idea.
People would just bring in their K-cups because mostly everyone has a Keurig machine. So I actually used them to make a snowman hat, and we used books from discarded books. So they cut the book into a snowman, and then they painted the Keurig cup thing into a black top hat. So that was just a really simple thing. I mean, that's probably not good for summer unless you did some type of winter and July thing. And it's just using things like even the plastic water bottles, which or old spaghetti jars and stuff like that. Like I've made crafts out of just things you use in the house all the time that people have. That way I don't have to collect them really, and people can just use their own materials, because that's always hard. Like if I have to use a craft with soda bottles or something, I don't drink that much soda, so I have to rely on others. Before we left, actually, I was going to do a do-it-yourself Bulbasaur planter, which is a Pokemon. So I have him right here, actually. He's like a little, well, you can't really see it. It's a soda bottle with his little Bulbasaur thing. That was just something we were going to do. It's a planter and it's a soda bottle. So I don't know, just using various junk, I guess.
And there are some great books out there. And I can put some of these into the list when we send it out, but there's Craft Geeks, there's a whole book, there's so many books of just upcycled crafts and so many Pinterest boards. So, kind of, again, you might want to just ask your patrons, what kind of things do you have sitting around the house? I see a lot of toilet paper cuffs, no-sew tote bags, knots instead out of an old t-shirt. These are things that people have around and that are fun to do. I like the idea of, with the pot that you showed, Christina, that's a pretty basic activity, but if you really tie it into a fandom that your group is interested in, now you've taken kind of an activity people might have seen before and brought it to a whole new level. And that's exciting. That's going to engage people.
So
let's see.
One program I was going to mention while you're taking a look at the chat. And this is not my idea, so I'm absolutely not taking credit for it, but I just thought it was a really sort of simple and cool concept, and something I wouldn't have thought of because I tend to sort of go to the farther reaches than to the more simple stuff, and that's a mistake on my part usually. Somebody at their library, they basically did a regrowing vegetables program. And so they basically just used the seeds or whatever was done after they ate, literally, and just showed how to recycle the seeds and how to sort of regrow them inside. And basically, most of the stuff that she got was just stuff that she found like around the house, anything for a container, pretty much, scoop of dirt, and just sort of walk them through sort of the life cycle of a plant or the life cycle of, vegetables, things like that, which I just thought was a really cool idea. And sort of combine that sort of recycling concept and things that you might just have around the house, and it doesn't matter what
Victory
piece of-
gardens,
you
victory
know?
gardens are huge right now. I mean, like everybody's thinking in that sustainability way right now.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's a lot of information out there. Everybody loves to grow stuff, kids find it fascinating every time. And I actually did for Family Maker Camp, I did a upcycled victory garden program. So there's a bunch of good ideas in there. And they've done some other like seed balls, seed bombs are always great. And you can do those with like just ripped up paper, basically make paper mache or mache, add in some seeds. Now you've got seed bombs, paint them with a little paint. It's a good gift. Okay. So that's some good ideas. And then last thing, simple, inexpensive, family-oriented suggestions, because if you can get the whole family in taking part in your program, right, that's going to get more engagement. So does anybody have any ideas for things specifically to engage families? And if you want to unmute yourself and jump in here, please, I would love to hear your voice. I'm seeing Rutgers Cooperative Education. Good one, Erin. Yeah, they have tons of free stuff. Anybody got ideas for family-oriented programs?
Oops, hold on. All right, hi everyone. So kind of going back to the whole thing with like the plants and the vegetables and whatever. One of the things that I've done that we've gotten people of just all ages, and it was families coming in for whatever reason, is anything to do with plants. A couple of years ago, I did a program. It was like make your own mini succulent garden, and I went out to thrift stores specifically to get different kinds of containers that they could use for that, and just ordered a whole bunch of succulents. And it was a relatively inexpensive program. One that I've done before and that I was going to do in April, but then of course, obviously we didn't, was a recycled herb garden seed starter. So just taking the leftover, like, pasta sauce jars and pickle jars and stuff like that. And then you put your layer of just cheap pea gravel in the bottom for drainage, and you plant your herb seeds with some dirt. And those programs, because again, they're inexpensive, and we got entire families, parents with their kids coming in, people of all ages, everyone seemed to love it.
So I'm hearing big thumbs up for gardening programs. And again, people can find those materials pretty easily these days. You can do that as an online program, either pre-recorded or a live stream. Yeah, so we encourage people to get out there and garden and use their yards. And, this is the perfect time of year. So I love that. And I'm seeing in the chat, chopped like programs with food. Maybe you say, okay, next week, put on your shopping list, you need these 3 items, and we're going to do an online Zoom chopped. That would be a ton of fun. And it's pretty easy to do. Everybody's got to go to the grocery store eventually, right?
And, I just want to piggyback on that idea too, because I was going to bring up the chopped concept too, because I think that can be taken in about 1,000 different directions if with just such a simple concept, because you could actually come up with a simple design challenge where they basically just have to use 2 or 3 items within their house, whatever they have. It doesn't matter. You're only allowed to use these 3 things that you pick from your house to do X, Y, or Z. I mean, and you can go in about 1,000 different, that could be a whole summer worth of programming, and you just have that one title, and you're doing these sessions a couple weeks, and you're not really having to put out for any supplies, because it's basically just whatever they have.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a pencil,
fantastic.
piece of paper, and an eraser, whatever,
No, that's a great idea. And I'm seeing in the chat too, someone saying virtual escape rooms. Kids love escape rooms. What a great thing that you can adapt. Scavenger hunts. There's the app Goose Chase. I think it's Goose Chase. Is a scavenger hunt app that you can use online. And I used it to do a spring flowers scavenger hunt. And it was a ton of fun.
I have an idea as well. Hi. So one of the things that you could do with families, I think, is along the idea of cooking. There's a lot of like game things you can cook, like from Minecraft, from Skyrim, and from other that I think could be very easily a family activity.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. Yeah. I mean, you'd like bring their passions into the kitchen, right? And then families get involved. And I think that's a great idea, Nicole. And then of course, there is Minecraft for Education. You can tell them, build a library in Minecraft. Let's do this together. And that allows for both synchronous and asynchronous, right? There's a time that you're working together, and then they can go off on their own and build. And maybe, if you are able to start your own server, there's a lot of space that you can go with that. And then you tie it into a cooking program later and an arts and crafts program, and now a Lego program, and you're kind of building out from that one interest, right? And you know that people are going to come back for all of it. And I see Google Forms for an online escape room. Yes, I think I've seen other people do that, and that's a really great way to do it. Oh, and can someone share what, Nicole, maybe you could just share what you just said into the chat, because some people missed it. They lost the sound. All right. If there are any other questions, we're kind of hitting that noon mark now. So any other questions? Share your resources on the Jamboard. We're going to send that out to everybody. Share your resources in the chat. If you'd like to share your contact information, please do that. I'm going to just jump back to my little screen for a second, theoretically. So now that you've got some resources, hopefully you've gotten some ideas, plan your next steps, right? Connect with your patrons, brainstorm some programming, set your goals, select what model works for you, figure out your format, start collecting materials or letting other people know what they need to collect for the summer, and spread the word. Get your friends to help you spread the word. And of course, have some fun, right? This is all supposed to be fun stuff. I can't seem to access the chat at the moment, so we're just gonna have to go with that. Thank you everybody for coming out. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your attention through all of this. My name again is Sandy Roberts. My email address is sroberts@warrenlib. Feel free to reach out to me. I know Doug, Christina, Aaron will all be happy to answer questions too. You can find me as Kaleidoscope Sci on Twitter and Instagram. I'm pretty active on both of those, and I would love to meet you there too in the virtual world. I'm going to put out one last poll for you all just to see how we did so that we can make it better for any future webinars. Oh, the slides will be available pretty quickly. I think Doug will have those for you. Just so you know, this webinar, you can actually get this link right here, and I'm going to throw it into the chat. Theoretically, I'm going to put it into the chat. Let's see, it's not working so great for me, but here are the links into the chat, which it's not letting me access chat, and I don't know why. It's just gone. If somebody else could post those from my document, I'd appreciate it. So this webinar is available. It's got all my notes in it too, if those are useful to you. The Jamboard, you have the link there. And then that last link is my summer outline. This is about 28 or 29 pages long at this point, and it outlines very specifically everything I'm personally offering this summer online. And I wanted to share that just to give some inspiration, to give you some ideas. Feel free to cut and paste into your own planning documents. I'm not going to be offended. Do not reinvent the wheel if you don't have to, but it includes maker programs and STEAM programs, some entrepreneurship stuff, coding. So give that a look. If that is useful to you, please do use it. I wish that I could actually see.
I'm writing it in the chat.
What's that?
I'm typing it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thanks. All right. Thank you all for coming out today. We will be sending this all to you in just a little bit. And please continue the conversation, stay in touch, and take care, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out today.